Hello, and welcome to the monthly preview of The Banker's April issue, which is all about banking the metaverse. I'm Joy McKnight, editor of The Banker, and I'm joined by Kimberly Long, who's Asia editor and author of the cover story. Kim, thanks for joining me.
Thanks, Joy.
The term metaverse obviously is bandied around quite a bit. Can you give us an explanation of what it is?
Okay, so the metaverse has really kind of moved through a few different ideas and iterations, but I think when we're talking about the metaverse now, I think most people became familiar with the term really when Facebook announced that they were changing the name to Meta and creating this metaverse platform. So what we've seen, though, is actually the metaverse has been in development for a long time. So you've seen platforms like Decentraland and the Sandbox, which are also both metaverses. And they've been around for several years now, and they're already up and running in the way that Meta's platform actually isn't really there yet. So the metaverse is really, it's a virtual world where you can create an avatar, you can go into that world, and you can do all kinds of things, live your life in the metaverse if you want to. There's the opportunities to buy land in the metaverse, you can set up shop in the metaverse, you can walk around, you can interact with other people. Some people have held concerts and like raves, I think, in the metaverse. So there's all these things that are able to happen there. But what's really not certain yet is around the banking aspect and how that's going to happen in the metaverse.
So can you talk a little bit about what the banks are doing, how they're exploring the metaverse? What do you think the potential is there for banks?
Yeah, so I think there's some potential, but it's really in the early stages so far. So I think JP Morgan made moves really early when they opened up like a branch in the metaverse. But this was really quite basic. It's just, it's just a storefront really you can go and visit, but you can't actually do anything transactional in there. And also HSBC, like since I finished the feature, have announced that they've bought plots of land as well within the metaverse. So they're starting to explore that too. And especially in Asia, we've seen the South Korean banks have started to explore what they can do in the metaverse. But at the moment, it's very basic. You can't do bank transactions, you can't buy things in the metaverse, but I think some banks are starting to explore the opportunities of doing things virtually. So we've all become so used to doing things online during the pandemic, but what's really been lacking is the human touch. And that's what I think some banks are looking for the opportunity to develop, is to have a kind of branch within the metaverse where your avatar can go to visit and then it can speak to a cashier or maybe in wealth management, your relationship manager, and talk to them and have that more human interaction with the other avatar. But that's kind of the level that we're at the moment. We're still, I think, a little way off kind of withdrawing cash, making purchases, doing full transactions within the metaverse.
So how do you think that's going to evolve, doing these transactions within the metaverse, and then what roles will the banks play? Do they have a role, do you think?
Yeah, I think this is a really interesting point now. So what really it depends on is whether or not we're looking to do things in crypto or fiat currencies. That's going to have a huge impact. And there is the opportunity actually that it might be more of a hybrid of the two. So that depends as well. This is where it gets more complicated on the type of metaverse that you're using. So if it's a closed platform, really you can use a fiat currency to really pay money into a digital wallet and then use that to transact. But if it's a more open metaverse where you can kind of interact and go between different spaces, that's going to have an impact on whether or not you can use fiat, because if it's going across borders, for example, that's going to have an impact. So actually that's where crypto is probably going to come in as the main usage of it. So there's a few crypto platforms are starting to explore really what they can do. But what we've already seen really is with things like online games and stuff. So I'm not really familiar with that. Maybe some people are. Where you can make purchases within the game. So maybe you can buy, I don't know, extra lives or things like that. And how those purchases are made, if they're made in like crypto, if they're made in fiat, and translating that into that kind of the metaverse platform. So making those purchases within the metaverse. So maybe we're looking at some places are selling NFTs, for example, within the metaverse, how they're going to be bought. And it's really about now just the banks trying to find their role within that. Do they actually operate as, a financial institution within the metaverse where you can store money, or do you just operate as an exchange for currency? It's all open at the moment, and it's really in the early stages, yeah. And we're not looking at anything regulated at the moment as well, which I think is putting some banks off from moving into the metaverse. But it's a really interesting time to look at what could be developing. And yeah, I think in the next few years, we'll see what's really going to come from this.
Excellent. You can read Kim's article on banking the metaverse in the April issue or on thebanker.com, as well as all the other content in the issue.